with a story. It's a story of a crowdfunding event. A couple of years ago, I was at a crowdfunding event in Delhi, and I was trying to socialize enough, so a random stranger asked me a very weird question. He said, Diksha, in which state exactly does Chhattisgarh lies? I mean, it's very weird, but the part which is more weirder is that he was not the only person asking me this question. There were many. But else, I'll continue the story later. I am Diksha Tiwari, a medical professional by degree. And while pursuing this rigorous and highly demanding degree, I ventured out. I met many people, many inspiring people. I traveled a lot and tried to learn new skills and followed my calling. And that is the reason why I'm standing in front of you as Dr. Diksha Tiwari, a founding chairperson of an NGO, Urban Empowering Lives, which connects women across the globe to promote good health and professional development across the women of Chhattisgarh. But that is not the reason why I'm here today. I have a never-ending enthusiasm and love for history, and Chhattisgarh's history to be precise, and that led me to start this initiative called History Chhattisgarh. History Chhattisgarh basically connects the youth to their history of the state and their glorious past. So I have a question for you all. How many of you present here are not from Chhattisgarh? Can I ask you a question, please? What's your name? What's your name?
Suchi.
Suchi, what was your first perception about Chhattisgarh?
Okay, so when I thought about Chhattisgarh, the first thing that came in my mind was the Naxalites.
All right, thank you. Honestly, I am not really surprised by this answer. I was pretty much expecting this answer. I'll tell you a story. Back in 2018, I got a call from my friend, and I remember the year because it was actually a game changer for me. So in 2018, I got a call from my friend. He lives in Delhi. He asked me कि दीक्षा तेरा छत्तीसगढ़ सेफ तो है ना? मतलब क्या मैं घूम फिर सकता हूँ? And I couldn't resist myself from saying कि भाई तेरे दिल्ली से तो सेफ ही यार. But jokes apart, I tried to dig even further and ask कि उसका knowledge आके छत्तीसगढ़ के बारे में कितना है. And listen to this carefully, okay? All he knew about Chhattisgarh was it's an overall Naxal-affected state. We all coexist with Naxalis. Everyone who lives in Chhattisgarh is a tribal, and we all speak some sort of tribal language. Really. And then I tried to outsmart him and tried to sound very smart. So I said, it's not just my tribe. There are 42 other types of tribes that lives in Chhattisgarh. And not just my strange tribal language. There are 92 types of tribal dialects spoken in Chhattisgarh. I thought, I was being smart. And he started laughing at me. Kuch bhi Chhattisgarh, kya baat kar rahi ho? And this literally happened with me. Anyway, so I have another question. How many of you present here are from Chhattisgarh? Many. Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Your good name, please.
Srishti.
Okay, Srishti, can you name a freedom fighter from India?
Exactly, I don't know, but Ram Prashad,
I don't know. All right, still close. Can you name a freedom fighter from Chhattisgarh?
I don't know.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
but I don't know.
No worries, please sit down. Again, I was pretty much expecting this answer. And गलती आपकी भी नहीं है, ये हमारे सिलेबस का कभी पार्ट ही नहीं था, and कभी हमें पढ़ाया ही नहीं गया, so आपको पता कैसे होगा. Very good, sir. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Please clap for it. So I'll continue the crowdfunding story that I started. After being bombarded with that strange geographical question about Chhattisgarh, I was sitting with certain historians and scholars and discussing the history of India. And when I say history of India, it meant we were discussing the history of the mighty Mughals and Rajputana and Marathas. Not a single person amidst those scholars uttered a single word about Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh to दूर की बात है, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh was also not the part of conversation, by the way. And the worst part is, even I, being a statesperson, didn't have anything constructive to put at that time, which led me questioning myself. What am I as a statesperson not doing right? What is Chhattisgarh as a state not doing right? And why are we at a condition we are today? So I asked you all today, what does it mean for you to be a Chhattisgarhi? What does it mean for you all to associate yourself with this land? And where do you see your Chhattisgarh in the cultural map of India? It's not just me, you, or those persons who really didn't knew the answers. Most of my friends in their lifetimes have listened to similar stereotypical questions about Chhattisgarh, और उनकी जिंदगी भी बताते बताते कि नक्सली से भी ज्यादा कुछ छत्तीसगढ़ में है. At this moment of time, I want every one of you to pause and reflect. Chhattisgarh is in the political map of India since 21 years now. And yet our cultural and social footprints are fading rapidly. I mean, it's imperative for us to realize that even after 21 years of being an independent state, we have failed to establish the totem pole for the world to see. I mean, it's really sad. But enough of crying and making us feel bad about ourselves. Let's open the floors with some amazing facts and trivia about Chhattisgarh, shall we? Most of us know that, like I mentioned, that Chhattisgarh is 21 years old now. But our history dates back from Mahabharat Kal to Ramayana, to Mauryas, to Guptas, to Marathas, and to Britishers. We are aware that Lord Ram spent some good 14 years in exile, but little did we knew that he spent 10 good years in Chhattisgarh, which was formerly known as Dakshin Kaushal. How many of you recognize this lady back in the picture? Of course, you do, because she is the most famous Mahanali Devi from Jaipur, known for her beauty, known for her courage. But how many of you recognize her? No one?
Maharani of Bastar. Maharani of Bastar.
Absolutely. Please, a huge round of applause for this guy. Maharani Prafulla Kumari Devi ji of Bastar, clearly an epitome of beauty, fought for the rights of the land, rights of the tribes, and for the land till her last breath from the two most powerful enemies of that time, which were the Nizams and the Britishers. She is from Chhattisgarh. And she was the only women ruler of Bastar, not only Bastar but Chhattisgarh. And she also contributed in education of girl child of the tribes. Do you know him? Of course, this man needs no introduction, but how many of you knew him? Pandit Sundarlal Sharma, also known as Chhattisgarh ka Gandhi, led so many freedom struggles, out of which Jal Satyagraha or Nehar Satyagraha is one of the most famous and prominent ones. The one-of-a-kind sculpture, Rudra Shiva, found nowhere else in the archaeological history of the world, but in your state, in Talagaon near Bilaspur. This temple, Sirpur temple, sir, Lakshman. So this Lakshman temple in Sirpur is 10 oldest surviving temples of the world in your Chhattisgarh. This one is my personal favorite, okay? It's from Sarguja, 2,300-year-old Jogi Mara Sita Bingra caves. It's actually known for a lot. It has this 300 years old rock paintings. It is one of the oldest known performing stage in the world. And this, my friends, when we talk about romance, Chhattisgarh cannot be left behind. We are very romantic people. Now, I'll tell you why. Because this is the oldest known love letter inscribed in the walls of Jogi Mara caves in Chhattisgarh. Written by Devdutt to his beloved. अभी भी इसकी स्टोरीज खत्म नहीं हुई है. जोगीमारा caves is the place where Kalidas wrote his immortal poetry Meghdootam, and the reason why we still worship clouds in Sarguja. This man, Maharaja of Sarguja, has a notorious record of killing 1,710 tigers, the highest known individual record till date. I mean, we Chhattisgarhis are quite the record makers, aren't we? But why is that we are still lagging behind and not getting the recognition we deserve? Maybe we are not really modern and very tribal. But that reminds me of Ghotul. Ghotul is a special tribal hut which is made for the young tribes of Murya community, where the young chaps from the tribe spends their time, meet the love of their life, date, learn worldly affairs, and then get married. We are modern, okay? But most of the people didn't knew these amazing facts about Chhattisgarh. और पता भी क्यों होगा, क्योंकि ना तो ये हमारे मेन स्ट्रीम हिस्ट्री का हिस्सा है, ना ही हमें कभी पढ़ाया गया, ना ही ये हमारे स्कूल करिकुलम का हिस्सा था, और ना ही कभी सीए के एग्जाम में पूछेगा. लेकिन I have many reasons to tell you that why your state's history is important. When you know your state's history, when you know the paths that your ancestors followed, leaving behind the traces for you to learn and avoid the mistakes they did, when you know how deep your roots are, it connects you with your community. It gives you deeper and more meaningful impact and glimpse to your ancestral history. But one of the major problems that we face while studying Chhattisgarh history is the fact that a rigid colonial system only provides literal validation to the written text. But the essence of history of Chhattisgarh lies in the oral format. The Pandwani of Tijanbai, the Suanacha that little girl performs in your veranda during Diwali, the folklores, the oral performing art is also history, my friends. But it's fading away rapidly. So what more can I say why our state's history matter and why do we need to bring it to life? But there is a very common prejudice that is being associated with history. I mean, history hai to boring hai, and that was one of my biggest challenges while I was preaching history. How can we resolve this problem? So I personally believe that history is to be broken down into the bite-sized trivias. And when I say bite-sized, I literally mean it in the size where you can easily eat it, ruminate it, and it can get into beneficiaries. And that is what led me to start this initiative, History Chhattisgarh, where my team and I strive to cut down Chhattisgarh's history into smaller stories so that people can pick the stories up and try to learn themselves and do research. It's not important for you to always write dates and statistics and figures to make, that makes history really boring. So we use the technology of today to tell the history of yesterday, the history of past. But somewhere I realized that this social media is not really enough. We need something more than that, something which is more personal, something which you can feel and touch. And that made me start this venture called Explore Heritage. Explore Heritage is a company where we try to connect the locals and the visitors and tourists to the local heritage sites via heritage walks, via workshops, via webinars and seminars. And then a question was raised to me that who will lead these walks? Shall we hire some PhD students or someone who has a history background to lead the walks? But then it clicked my mind, why not we let owners tell their story? And when I say owners, I mean the tribals. When we let our owners tell the story, when we let the tribals own their history, it not only gives them the strength to own their history, but also instills the confidence inside them. They are confident enough to tell their story. And it also never lets people to treat them as mere subjects. मतलब आए फोटो ली डिस्प्ले में लगाया और चले गए. They are much more than that. They are your research partners. It's their land. Chhattisgarh is proudly 1/3 tribal land. So let them tell their stories, and that is how this initiative started. Our history is the testament of our glorious past. There are so many stories of unsung heroes, of freedom fighters, yet waiting to be explored and cherished. So, guys, let us wear our Chhattisgarhi pride like we wear our hearts in our sleeves. वर्तमान में छत्तीसगढ़ के संबंध में एक नया शब्द उजागर हुआ है, गढ़बो नव छत्तीसगढ़। वास्तव में छत्तीसगढ़ को नया गढ़ने की कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है। जरूरत है तो इसके समृद्धशाली इतिहास और इसके वैभवशाली परंपरा को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय एवं राष्ट्रीय पटल पर पहचान दिलाने की।